We try to do everything we can to protect them, but I have, at the end of the day, no absolute control over what happens to them, right? In the same way, we just want to do the best we can with what we're being given and use the wisdom that's been written to in Proverbs throughout Scripture of how to use things as unto the Lord. Comfort is extremely dangerous. Complacency is extremely dangerous. And I'm gonna be the best that I possibly can be, not because I have that accountability myself. People are like, "Who are you competing with?" I'm like, "Me. I'm competing with me."
Yeah, that's good.
You're listening to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
Hey folks, running an auto repair shop, it's tough. We know that. And between managing repairs, keeping customers happy, and handling front office tasks, there's never enough time in the day. That's where HubShop Solutions comes in. Hub takes the burden off your team by building fast, accurate repair estimates and handling extended warranties, so you can focus on what really matters, running a profitable, efficient shop. With Hub, you free up your team, you boost efficiency, and you increase profits. So sign up now and get free onboarding. Visit HubShopSolutions.com to schedule a demo today. HubShop Solutions. Unlock your shop's full potential. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Limitless Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Parnell. And before we get started, as you know, we're on our mission to reach people and build leaders. I got a great guest today, a great leader who I've known for years. I've known this leader for, 30-ish years. And but before we get started with this guest, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all the things you need to on social media to help this channel reach people and build leaders. You can also find this podcast on YouTube at The Bearded Leader. But again, speaking of leaders, got another great leader today, a good friend of mine, Tyler Hennessy. He is an entrepreneur. He's a financial stewardship consultant, a husband, and a father. And Tyler, man, we're so glad to have you on the Limitless Leadership Podcast, my friend.
What's up, my brother? Yeah, this is overdue, and I'm glad to be here to hang out with you, man.
Overdue indeed. You and I have been chatting about this for a while, and I'm glad we finally got you on here. If you're just now putting the dots together, connecting the dots, you might notice that Tyler is not from the automotive repair industry. A lot of our listening audience is from the automotive repair industry, but as we all know, this is a leadership podcast, and leadership is a skill set that needs to be developed and honed, and it can be in any and every industry. And I like to pull in leaders from other industries. And Tyler joins us from the financial industry. And I may be even saying that wrong, but you can help me if that's incorrect, Tyler. But if you would, man, go ahead and share with the audience who you are, what you do, and how you do it.
Man, I mean, so let's keep this as short as we can. But like I said, I know Josh. I think I've known you since I was like 11 or 12 years old. So we go back in we were hooping back in the day, playing basketball.
Yeah.
I think either of us were over 5'8" at the time. I actually kept growing a little bit and left Josh on that end.
Shots fired.
Sorry. Damn. But bro, those are some great memories, seriously, back in the day. So I've known Josh that way. I ended up going to business. I got my business management degree in college. Was really seeking, I had a relationship with the Lord, but was really seeking, if I look back at it, just I wanted to be in charge of something, wanted to own something. My dad owned his own building company. My uncles owned a big time building company in Houston. And so I was like, this is my route. I got the degree, moved back to Texas, got my real estate license in Texas. And I was like, here we go. And then the Lord just like flipped my life upside down. I was like, nope, here we not go. And did a 180 and I got called into full-time ministry as a worship pastor. I don't need to give the whole backstory to that, but I thought it was going to be a 2 to 3 year deal, Josh, and it ended up being a 20-year career where I was in Austin, Texas for a year, Houston, Texas for 3.5 years, and then Shreveport, Louisiana for the last 15, leading young adult ministries, leading students, leading adults, and all sorts of things. And very, very glad I got to do that. And what's so funny, when you look back in hindsight or just in retrospect, what God's doing, at least in my life, he was just refining so many things and things that I kind of thought I had together. And, I don't think it's a sin to try to make money. I think we should be, good stewards of what God's given us. But if I had gone into this world in, 2001, I would have sought it for the wrong reasons, and I would have been seeking money, I think, just for a competitive gain or to see how much I could make. And after, like I said, 20 years of ministry, he just refined the way I even looked at it, and everything. So the last 5 years, even though I was still part-time ministry, I started kind of getting back to my roots of business on the side in the evenings. My wife and I had bought quite a few, or not quite a few, but bought a home, lived in it the safe way, and then would flip it. We did that 7 times along the process of being in ministry. And long story short, found a mentor back in 2020 and found a way to pay my home off faster. And it just snowballed, man. I started like getting back into things. I'm like, I love this. And I felt myself not wanting to do it truly to be like, how much money can I get? But I was like, this is changing my family's life. I want to use this to change other people's lives. And so it ended up moving into a place where I was doing it part-time. And then as of July 1st, 2024, last year, I was like, I got to do this. I feel like God's calling me outside the walls of the church to do ministry in a different way that I knew would ruffle feathers. Because anytime you're doing something in the financial industry or money, you just say the word money, and half the people in the country, oh, that's not Christian, And so I went full time in that world and started a few companies. And that's how I got to where I'm at right now.
Well, and to piggyback on that, I mean, not only are you going into finance, but you're also leaving ministry. So I can imagine that quite a few feathers may have been ruffled, or at least that's what it might feel like sometimes. You and I have had this conversation before about the journey into entrepreneurship, and there's a lot of expectations. There's a lot of things that occur that we weren't expecting. And I'm going to touch on what your journey has been like so far. But before we do that, I introduced you as a financial stewardship consultant, and you use that word steward in your introduction. Help us understand where your heart is regarding this particular word and why it's in your title. All right, folks, as you know, great leadership isn't about doing everything the best. It's actually about having the right partners in your corner to build your shop's success. It's about putting the right team in place. It's about choosing the right vendors to make you a pro, making pro moves. And when I think about the pros, I think about shop marketing pros. The know, like, and trust factor, that's a real thing. And Shop Marketing Pros understands that. That's why I want to recommend Shop Marketing Pros to become your marketing partner in your shop. They get to know, like, and trust you and your business to then help your audience get to know, like, and trust you too, and bring your shop to the next level. So when I talk about making pro moves, this is the kind of move I'm talking about. This is the kind of standard-setting partnership that's going to elevate your shop. So if you're ready to become a pro in your shop, visit shopmarketingpros.com and partner with the best.
Yeah. So really, words mean a lot to me. I was a songwriter. Like I said, I was a worship pastor, and as much as I might be ADD and all over the place sometimes, like if I'm going to define something, I want to define it the right way. And when I was even trying to figure out a way, when you and me are both entrepreneurs, I had to put some dadgum title next to my name. And I didn't want to be a financial advisor. I didn't want to be whatever it might be. And I was like, the heart behind what I'm doing is to teach people how to steward whatever they've been given as unto the Lord. So whether you've been given a little or a lot, like I think about the parable of the talents, which is so funny how that is misunderstood. And not to make this a biblical podcast, but man, that was the heart behind what I was trying to do.
Share it, Tyler, if you don't mind. Share the parable.
Yeah. So the parable basically is the master, he gives there's 3 guys, different amounts of talents. And they one guy holds on to all of it, digs a hole, puts it away for the whole year. The other guy goes out and multiplies it a little bit. And the other guy goes out and multiplies it tenfold, like lends it out and makes money on his money, which is a lot of what I do. And in our culture, there's just, fear is the number one thing I see with people when we talk about finances. I mean, it's the number one reason for divorce, if not 1.5, whatever. And so, but the one who was rewarded the most was the one who actually tenfolded his talents, and not the one who put it away and was like, well, I don't want to lose everything. What if World War III happens? What if the wrong president gets elected? What if? That is the wrong type of mentality. And so that is like holding on with clenched fists, thinking that you have some control that you don't have. I tell people all the time, I'm like, I get asked, well, what happens if this? I'm like, well, first, I'm not a fortune teller. But second, like, that's the wrong question. You're living in fear. And you think you have, like, even over our children, we try to do everything we can to protect them. But I have, at the end of the day, no absolute control over what happens to them, right? In the same way, we just want to do the best we can with what we're being given and use the wisdom that's been written to them in Proverbs throughout Scripture of how to use things as unto the Lord.
Fear is what if, faith is even if.
That's
and
right.
We know that the similarity between faith and fear is that they both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. So why not choose faith? It's easy for us to think about, well, what's the worst that could happen? But if we flip that script and change our perspective, because with perspective, the way that we view things drives the way that we do things. What if we ask, what's the best that could happen? I mean, there's so many different challenges or alternatives that we could ask when we're exercising this fear muscle to switch it into a faith muscle. You kind of alluded to something that I want to touch on, and it kind of ties into another question that I have in regards to managing money and maybe the mistakes that we have with managing money. So as I shared with you, Tyler, this podcast typically serves the automotive repair industry, but as I shared earlier, it's a leadership podcast, so it can apply to any industry. But I want to hang on my industry, being the automotive repair industry, and really acknowledge a unfortunate reality, and that is our industry as a whole is not great with managing money. And so if I were to ask you, someone who has a wealth of knowledge, pun intended, I guess, if someone who has the knowledge that you do have, what are some mistakes, maybe what are some just rookie mistakes that a lot of folks make when managing money, and what can we do otherwise to flip that script?
So I'm going to answer this pretty bluntly and probably step on toes, maybe intentionally. You're not the only industry that struggles with finances. I would say Americans we have poor financial literacy. It is what it is. In general, people follow the crowd. It's like, because the same thing we just talked about, it's a fear thing. If at least I'm with the crowd, at least we're all going down together. I mean, that's just a horrible way to think. And then you have, by the grace of God, I'm grateful for this, even though it's very difficult. The Lord wired me from a young age to not want to follow the crowd, to kind of make my own way. It's like, there's like an innate thing in me. If everyone's going this way, I'm like, but what about the other side? That's why we're both entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that that's always right, but I do think we should be questioning things. We should be seeking truth, not just saying, well, this is what everyone done before me, what generations did before me. I can't tell you the amount of people that end up becoming clients of mine, but they're just doing whatever their financial advisor says. I want to be clear. I have good friends who are financial advisors, some who are fantastic. They have more licenses than me. Some have more education in certain areas than me, but I have education in areas that they definitely do not have. And so for you just to be like, I'm just going to do whatever this guy tells me to do, it's not wise. I'm just going to call it what it is. And this isn't making fun of any number. So like you can make $30,000 a year and live a great life for the Lord. You can make $5 million a year, anything in between. But the financial advisors, we looked this up, on average make between like $70,000 and $120,000 a year. And they're the ones teaching the economy how to be wealthy.
That's interesting.
It's just like, I'm like, this is weird. And then no, sorry, I'm not putting a blanket on that. Let me back up. Most get you into just insurance policies, stocks, bonds, mutual funds. And then I started meeting guys who are wealthy, and their mindset was different. The way they handled money was different. And so as opposed to being like, well, you're doing it wrong, I started asking a lot of questions and getting mentored and saying, hey, my goal is not to be rich, but why would I just go this route because everyone's doing it, when there's another route and someone will teach me the way? And that kind of began my journey on this.
That's the power of asking questions too. I've got to imagine that a lot of folks who are wealthy are people who have traditionally or historically asked a lot of questions. And you mentioned earlier how you're not, I mean, it's not necessarily like you're asking questions for the sake of challenging somebody, but you're asking for the sake of understanding. Like if we want to exercise one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, a great book by Stephen Covey, seek first to understand, then to be understood. If we're asking a lot of questions, we are seeking first to understand. I'm trying to understand for the sake of clarity and direction. Those are 2 things that I think every person needs and quite frankly deserves in any relationship, especially professionally, clarity and direction. We can get both of those through asking questions. I'll ask you, Tyler, in regards to, I'm going to kind of segue with questions. You probably were asking yourself a lot of questions as you're considering a step of faith into entrepreneurship. And I'm sure there's a lot of times where you're like, hold up, God, like this is not what we talked about. I mean, you had me come into ministry for 15 years and now you're telling me to go outside and to do something that, while I do feel comfortable, it's also, it's going to come with challenges. It's going to come with some ruffled feathers. I'll ask you, for anyone who is questioning the possibility of taking that similar step of faith, what advice can you give to someone who's considering entrepreneurship, considering leaving something that's safe and secure to jump into the unknown?
That's a great question, and I'll try to answer the best I can. I try to ask myself the what if question in reverse. Like, what happens if I stay? And when I got to a place, I'm like, if I stay, and I've been feeling, for me, it was a conviction of, I'm calling you outside the walls of the church. There's different ways to minister than what we think is just a traditional minister inside the walls of the church. And you can still glorify me in everything you say and do, even in talking about money. And Josh, I actually think that is kind of my niche. I'm going to keep on talking about money and finance and all that stuff, but I'm going to constantly glorify God in the process, and not for seeking and financial gain. So I ask myself, if I stay, what's going to happen? I believe comfort is extremely dangerous. Complacency is extremely dangerous. And depending on the person, it's just, and I battled it because I was like, man, I have a W-2 salary, which at that point, honestly, I was getting paid well by the church and could have lived off it the rest of my life. I could have retired there. Great people, still love them. I'm nothing negative even to say, but it could turn into complacency very easy. And I'm like, that is not who God made me to be. Mm-hmm. I know that I want to do the most of my life that He's called me to. And so I think you should ask yourself the question, if you're battling that, is what's the alternative? And what am I going to look back on 5, 10, 20 years from now? It's not going to be like you and me both. I believe will be like, I'm glad that I leave. And I don't love the phrase betting on yourself. I don't think that's what I'm betting on, the Lord in me. But like, I wanted to be like, God, here I am surrendering without knowing what's coming, which is actually what faith is. And so you have a lot of people who say they have faith, but they actually they have a W-2 and insurance and healthcare.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
And so I'm like, I want to be a doer, like it talks about in the book of James. Like, I want my life to reflect that I actually believe that the Lord provides for me. I actually believe that when I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, that He's going to show up. And so, if anything, it's increased my faith like crazy because it's a daily turning to Him.
Yeah. Man, I can definitely relate to that. You know, there's you and I were talking offline before we went live, and I was sharing with you here lately what's been on my heart the last week or two is just this fine line between courage and crazy. Yeah. And you know, thinking about my own journey into entrepreneurship and through entrepreneurship, still on this up and down roller coaster. And at times it's like, man, this is when I really think about what we've been able to do in such a short amount of time. It took courage to be able to take these steps and to do these things and to take this action that I wasn't really sure of the results. And there's a lot of uncertainty. On the other hand, it's like, there's that fine line between courage and crazy. I mean, some people might say like, hey man, you're crazy. And sometimes I feel like it. I mean, sometimes it's like, man, I know I'm running with some blind optimism. Just, you know, I'm an eternal optimist. If you know me, you know that about me. And sometimes it feels like there's this blind optimism, but to your point, what I do believe is that God keeps providing. He keeps providing because we're obeying the call and we're doing the things that it may not feel comfortable, but to your point, growth and comfort can't coexist. If I were to ask you a question that I want to make sure I'm careful with how I'm wording it, because this is not to call anyone out, but I've got to assume that when you were at the church and you were in ministry, you were feeling a level of comfort that you were not comfortable with because you knew that you weren't growing the way that God intended you to grow. If I were to ask you from a leadership perspective, if someone is in the same position that you were, what are some things that you could have had done for you to challenge you? Like, what are some opportunity areas that you may have felt like maybe your own leaders were not providing that would challenge you? And again, I want to make sure I'm wording it carefully. I know that you have a good relationship with the folks that you're with, but was there an opportunity that you felt was missed? Or maybe were you voicing something that you didn't feel heard on?
I love that question, and I want to answer it appropriately. It's because blanket statements are unwise, right? So I don't want to do that. Mm-hmm. In the church in general, from my 20 years in the church, that's a big struggle across the board, man, is complacency. And people don't want to call it out, but there's complacency, comfort, and, well, I must be doing right because my name says minister next to it or pastor next to it. So I must be being biblical because it says Pastor Tyler. And I'd rather know when I put my head on the pillow at night that I'm making an impact every day on people's lives. And I feel like I did that for many years and could still do that. So some are called, I think, to do that full time. And I believe I was called for a season to do that full time. But Josh, it's just like, I actually felt more equipped, just to back up a little bit, in the business world than anything I ever did. Like I actually was confident in the business world. I was like, man, I'm gonna go kill this when I was 20. It's probably cocky. But like I believed, I grew up in it. I knew it. I was like, I'm a hustler. That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I'm a hustler. That's what I'm thinking. And in the church, I was like, God, I'm not good at this. I'm just learning to sing. I'm not a good musician. And God was like, perfect. That's where I want you. And now it's different. I'm like, I felt equipped in this, but I'm going, God, my heart's changed and I want to do this. I feel equipped, but I don't want it. I don't want people to think my motives are, you battle all the inner mental battles of what are people going to think and all that stuff. And so it's refining me in a lot of ways. I don't know if that answers your question fully, but I think knowing that, not to be cliche with all these phrases, but if I look at myself in the mirror every morning, I want to know that I'm challenging myself, that I'm actually growing, that I'm doing hard things, that I'm not just doing what was easy.
How have you been able to manage the perception of the opinions of others? You talked about, I don't want someone to think this or that. And on the one hand, like you believe so firmly and wholeheartedly in what you're doing, and you're staying focused, nose to the grindstone. I know that, and I get that. I understand that. How do you manage to remember that those opinions of others are not the opinion of yourself? Walk us through what that looks like and the mental navigation of that.
So I learn in simple truths, and I live by simple truths, because I think sometimes we get too complex and we don't achieve anything. Right when I was about to leave, I didn't leave the church, leave my church position. I'm still part of a church. But the phrase, I went to this event and it was one step at a time. And the Lord clearly in my heart was like, this is your next journey. As much as you like to plan everything and probably control things and all the things that I want to do being in charge, the Lord's like, we're going to do this one step at a time, and your faith is going to grow. And I can say in spades that is happening. And so, it talks about do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow has enough worries of its own, all those types of things. And Josh, more than I ever have been, I still need to grow in this area. I'm learning to be present. I'm learning to go, I can't affect what happened yesterday. I can't even affect what's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm going to show up today and I'm going to be the best that I possibly can be. Not because I have that accountability myself. People are like, who are you competing with? I'm like, me. I'm competing with me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Like, and I've just told you not to, like, I won some awards at the company I'm at, and like I'm grateful because I'm a words of encouragement guy, but I'm like that. All I was thinking is, how do I get better? It's like, how do I get better? I want to keep on growing. So one step at a time is truly a mantra in my life, because if I get ahead of it, I'm going to get into discouragement. Or what if I don't get paid this next month? What if clients don't keep coming in?
Yeah.
And God's like, all of that is fear and control. And when I let it go and I'm like, I'm going to do this podcast with Josh the best that I can today, get on with a client here in a little while and do the best I can with them. Like, I trust that the fruits of my labor are gonna work.
That's great, man. So you're preaching on like the Mamba mentality. It's this relentless pursuit of perfection, knowing you're never going to attain it, but knowing that you're going to keep on striving for it. And it's okay to be content, but not comfortable. Like I can be happy with where I'm at and where God has brought me and where I'm going, but I'm not going to be comfortable. And content doesn't mean satisfied. It just means being happy. And I think a lot of us, we fail to step back and look at the things in our life that are going well, the wins that we're experiencing. Man, enjoy those. Like, be happy with what you've done and what you've been able to accomplish, but don't be comfortable.
Bro, I know I'm skipping questions, but I'm just telling you just because you got me fired up by saying
Come on, bring it.
My number one mentor in my life, Mike Oliver, passed away 2 years ago, 2 Septembers ago. He was family. He was uncle-in-law, was like seriously my best friends, talked to him all the time, was pouring into me, great businessman in Dallas. And when I was going through a 3-year prayer of like, should I leave or should I not leave? What if I don't make it? He was constantly like, go, like, you got this. And he said, Tyler, my favorite thing about you is you're unsettled, and I'm going to pray you remain unsettled the rest of your life. And I remember when he told me that, it bothered me. I was like, but Paul says be content in all circumstances, He's like, no, I want you to be content, but I pray that you stay unsettled, because that's where your passion comes from. And like, it's like now in my life, I'm like, thank you, Jesus, that I'm never like completely settled to like, all right, I've made it, or I'm comfortable.
Yeah.
So it changed my life with him teaching me. That's just what we're talking about.
I'll tell you what, man, that there's been a handful of things that you've said on this episode that, I mean, you and I, we've been good friends for a long time for a reason. And there's a lot of similarity, a lot of alignment between you and I. But, you talked about the importance of being present. And even like I have a tattoo on my hand that says "Be still," and it's right next to my watch, because when I look at my watch, because I think I got so many things I got to do, and I got a schedule that I got to stay true to. I have to remember, like, look, my kids are not going to be this age forever, and I want to make sure that the type of time, effort, and energy I'm giving to Limitless Leadership, I also want to make sure that I'm giving to my family, who deserve more of that than my company does, right? And so, I mean, I think you and I are different because I have to have a tattoo to remind me of it, but still, but we both believe the same thing.
Here's a shameless plug. What's it even called? I wrote a song 2020 about the stillness. I don't know. It's learning to trust you.
Okay.
It's called learning to trust you. I mean, it can come straight from scripture, but the Lord wrecked me. He's like I'm just, this is my interpretation, but you're not still. You're constantly going. You don't know how to rest. You're not present. And so the whole song is learning to trust you. And that's kind of what even brought me into this.
Love that. I think that trust at the root of any trust is at the root, should be at the root of any relationship. And if we're going to lead anyone effectively, we've got to create safety and trust so that we can provide clarity and direction. I'll ask you, Tyler. There's two questions I ask every guest on this podcast. The first is, what does leadership mean to you? How would you answer that question?
Yeah. Well, I thought about a few things. I will say this, and I love what you're doing. So I'm not knocking it at all. I think leadership is one of the most overused words in business there is. But it's there for a reason, right? Because if we're actually going to train leaders, or you're going to train leaders, we need to be able to define it. And I know you have great definitions for it. But for me, I come back to a true leader it really just means more accountability, more responsibility, someone you actually want to follow. I think about Jesus himself, who I believe was the best leader of all time. And he was literally the ultimate servant. And so I think there's some misnomers of, if I'm a leader, I'm more important. And I don't believe that. I think if I'm a leader, people actually go, what you're chasing or what you're doing is something I want to emulate. And so the only way that happens in my life is if I actually become a man of true character and I can back up my words and who I am. And so I do believe, if you even ask about spiritual gifts, I believe God made me a leader from a young age. And talk about basketball, I think I got leadership award multiple years in basketball. I think you did too. And I remember that's one of the reasons I was drawn to you as a friend. I'm like, you were passionate about what you were doing, and you were humble. And that drew me in. Is like, I think I'm a year maybe younger than you, maybe two. But I think a true leader is you understand who you are, and you understand where your source of strength and everything comes from. For me, bro, I mean, I can't remove faith from it, because for me, everything comes back to Jesus. And so if I don't have Jesus, I would have no leadership skills, because then it's all about Tyler, and it's all about what I can do. And so my source of strength is him. And so I would say those who are more responsible, willing to be accountable, and willing to get in the dirt, whatever, with their people, and lead from the back.
That's strong, man. That's one of the best answers I've heard on this podcast. And so I appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned that leadership, in your opinion, is a bit overused. Yeah, I got a bone to pick with you, because another word that you feel is overused is legacy. And the title of my book is Leading a Legacy. And so I want to ask you to share, like, because I know why you feel the way that you do, but I'll share with the audience your opinion of the word legacy.
Yeah, well, I want to touch on it real quick though. By the way, like, because in ministry there was always leadership conferences, and I'm like, the word leadership isn't even used in the Bible. Like it depends on what version you look at, but go Google if you don't believe me. Like, it's always about servant and all these other character qualities. So I do think a leader should be defined in how do people want to be around you? They want to follow you. So it's a character play is what I mean. And so for legacy, same thing you said. I have had that question asked me, what's your legacy? And I'm like, man, Josh, I want people to say, and my wife says this, I'm so grateful, because, our wives will call us out faster than anybody, but she's like, you talk the same on this podcast as you talk when you get off the podcast, as when I led worship as a worship pastor, when I would lead Bible studies, for better or for worse. But I don't think I ever presented myself as having it all together, being holier than thou. Look at my seminary degree. Like none of my accolades. It was always like, man, I'm running this race with you guys, and we should be coming alongside each other. That's one of my biggest passions or frustrations. Well, I don't know what word to use here, but like there's so much comparison and envy in the church and in real life. And like, I want to get around people who actually pull for one another, because we all have insecurities. We all have struggles.
Yeah,
we all
that's
have
so good.
trials. I'm like, I want to be around people that are going, dude, I want to see you win because I love you and because I support you and because there's enough crap and negativity coming against all of us already.
Tyler, dude, this is so good, man. I mean, you're spot on. We know that comparison is the thief of joy, but I like what you shared earlier. The only person you're comparing yourself to is the person you were yesterday versus the person you're trying to be tomorrow. So I think that's great. And I want to highlight you and honor you for a second, man. Like something that you are great at, you always have been. I agree with what your wife is sharing in regards to you are real, like you are authentic. And what I know about you, Tyler, is you are authentic, you are humble, and you are vulnerable. And those are the three attributes I believe all of us need in order to effectively connect with those that we're leading. And what we know is that connection is what creates engagement, and engagement is what increases performance. But you can't increase performance if you don't have a leader who's willing to connect authentically, humbly, and vulnerably. And you are someone who, for the 30 plus years that I've known you, have been just that person. Back then too, you mentioned 20 years ago, maybe you had a little different, cockiness, confidence. There's a fine line between that too, but I'll tell you, man, you've always been real. Like you've always been authentic. And so I want to highlight you for that and just acknowledge you for that. Cause that's not something that is easy to do, especially at a younger age, because there is so much insecurity and immaturity that we navigate through at a young age. But the fact that you have been able to be authentic, humble, vulnerable, connect in that way, you have been a leader since day one. And so I want to acknowledge you for that. Like that's a strong attribute that you possess.
Well, thank you, Jesus. And thank you for saying that. I hope the camera was just on you. You actually got me a little emotional for a moment when you said that, because dude, I mean, being very transparent, like I pray for that every morning, dude.
Mm-hmm.
We have Josh, we don't have anything to offer without the Lord's grace and the Holy Spirit in us. And so I'm like, I know in my flesh, I'm going to seek Tyler type stuff. And I want to do kingdom stuff. I want to have an eternal impact.
Yeah.
So
and you're doing it, man. You're doing it. My last question to you, actually I got two questions, but one of them is, what is the best advice you've ever received from a coach or a mentor?
Yeah. One was the thing I already said, Mike Oliver. And by the way, I've officiated 2 funerals in my life. One was my best friend who you know of, John Edward, who died about 11 years ago. Maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12 years ago. I don't remember. And then Mike Oliver 2 years ago. So it's crazy how God does that. But I was upheld during those moments. But Mike was a great businessman and just always he was an encourager. Like he got it, and so that I consider him a great leader, because he was building me up and saying things that I didn't believe about myself, but I started to believe about myself because he kept on saying that. But he told me to live. He said he prayed that I would live a life unsettled for forever, that I would keep chasing. And it was like basically our joke is we don't want to go to heaven well rested. Like at the end of a CrossFit workout, I do CrossFit with my wife a few days a week just to stay in shape. I'm like CrossFit juniors, but at the end of workouts, I'm literally like laying on the ground, and it's like I want to do hard things. I kind of visualize that when I get to heaven one day, I want to go in just like I left it all on the field type deal. So that was definitely one thing. And what we just touched on a minute ago, another mentor of mine was basically being the same, being who you are at home, work, church, functions, everywhere. And I think like I said, as a pastor, that's one thing that bothered me a lot going into it was, and I'm not talking about my old church or anybody specifically, but I grew up growing up. I thought a lot of guys were very fake, and I'm like, dude, meet us where we are. Like, admit that we all have struggles, we all have trials. So just I would say, living a life of unsettled passion, and then being true. Like, there's a lot of phraseology out there. There's a lot of crap out there. There's a lot of things that are said, but like, Josh, to my core, I want to be a doer. I want people to know that I'm a person of action. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then when I mess up, I'm going to fall on the sword and say I messed up. Just be a person of character. Yeah.
Again, strong leadership. I like that phrase, unsettled passion. I think that's a strong way to put it. Well, Tyler, my final question for you is, how can our audience get in touch with you?
Yeah, a few ways. So try to make it easier because my name's hard to spell. You can either go to tylerhennessy.com, hennessyconsulting.com, or makesYouBetter.com. The reason for that, man, is my dad, we were raised that way as Hennessees. It was all about choose the hard way, the narrow path. And so even as a father, anytime my kids are like, this is hard, or I don't want to do this, I've always just said hard makes you better. And it's a biblical mentality of anything that's going to iron sharpening iron, but anything that's making you sweat, or that's how we grow. If you want to live, like we talked about a moment ago, if I live a life of safety, or what I think a false safety, false sense of security, because I even think when we, people put all their money in their CDs and their savings account, like there's no security in that, zero, but we have a false sense of security. So I try to live a life, and I tell myself daily, I tell my kids, I'm like, hey, hard makes you better is the website, hardmakesYouBetter.com. But it's kind of a mantra for my life.
Love that. HardmakesYouBetter.com. You mentioned Hennessy. It's pronounced like the drink, but it's spelled differently. You got two E's at the end and not the Y.
I know. It's like the state of Tennessee, but with an H.
Oh, okay. That's a better way to put it.
Well, I get the drink all the time. Don't be wrong. People are like, Hennessy? I'm like, no.
Awesome. Well, Tyler, man, great seeing you again. Thanks for being on the podcast. This will likely not be your only time on the Limitless Leadership podcast.
Cool. I appreciate it, bro. Thank you for having me. It was a blast just getting to chat for a little bit.
Awesome. Likewise. And thank you for being here. As you know, every episode, we look to transform our leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results. So thanks again for tuning in to the Limitless Leadership Podcast, tongue twister. Why did I call it the Limitless Leadership Podcast? Anyway, have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading well.